Good morning, good morning, good morning again, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the disclaimers. If you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. In particular, I want you to take note of the article written by NeuroClastic. It's a small non for profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 900 ABA professionals from all over the world in regards to the JRC's so called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center feels so threatened by this particular article that they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Folks, NeuroClastic has refused. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. Also in there, you're going to find a link to NeuroClastic's public statement in regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to the GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding in case the JRC decides to see through with their threat. Trigger warning, folks, when we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center and Agape School for Boys, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you do got young children present, folks, please go ahead and utilize those headphones. Another trigger warning. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and we do speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are indeed watching this, parental supervision is very much advised, all right? Okay, so where we left off, Skinner understood that every aspect of our culture was designed for exploitation. He believed grading was a tool of violence against natural development processes. He isn't wrong. Have you looked at our society lately? Everything is looking to exploit us. All right? Okay? One of the more sinister parts of our current age is everything within the media and the wider world is driving us to make knee jerk reactions. Whether it's war propaganda or whether it's building fear about the concept of aging and how it affects our appearance, or whether it's trying to use fear or jealousy or what have you. It is geared specifically to target our emotions and our insecurities in order to exploit it, in order to make a profit. The medical model has been using this particular type tactic, as it were, to exploit both parents and disabled people and folks with mental health issues for time ad nauseum. Okay? It's only been revved up over the years as more people are targeting specifically vulnerable, poor parents. Places like the JRC, they build that fear. And then these parents are distraught. They don't have the money to be sending their kids to special places like Rivendell. So places like the JRC will swoop in, build on those insecurities, and sell them a beautiful lie. Okay? ABA doesn't escape this either. They do exactly that, and it starts day one in the doctor's office as soon as the diagnosis is given. They build on that fear. They did it with my aunt when I was first diagnosed. She'll never be able to go out there on her own without some form of intervention. Here's what they don't tell you. Nobody does. All of us, neurotypical or atypical, are not the rugged individualists we like to paint ourselves to be. Everybody has some form of something or someone that they lean on, but they won't tell you that. I will, because I'm a people watcher. Okay? They separate us out and emphasize this as a way to build fear. After they get that fear sufficiently built up, they hand you a pamphlet in regards to ADA. If your kid is a child, a little child in particular, they begin to stress that early intervention like it is literally, they will sell it to you as a life or death type of situation. No, because I've seen it. Okay. Also, comprehend this. This is a multi-million-dollar making business, folks. They can say they're not a business, they're a non for profit, they care about autistics. I'm here to tell you bullshit. Bullshit. Okay? Just like the rest of the medical model, they're only in it for themselves just like everybody else. Okay? They're hardly going to use ABA as a form and a way to make sure that we don't need interventions anymore because that's where they make their money. All right? Cool. Glad we had this conversation. Skinner was so distraught, he imagined a fictional utopia in Walden 2, where children could explore their natural talents and interests at their own pace without grades, curricula, or punishment. His vision was somewhat realized in things like democratic education, Monter Montessori, and other child center and trauma informed educational approaches that have demonstrated remarkably positive outcomes, including for neurodivergent students. One of the reasons I never went to what I would call mainstream college, why I ended up at OTC instead of MSU, is because there are subjects that I am horrible in that literally produced meltdown behavior and feelings of deep inadequacy when I was a kid. In particular, I'm talking about the more advanced forms of math. Okay? That was one of the major reasons why I decided to go to OTC that had a robust area of tutors that dealt specifically with individuals like myself as opposed to going to the more mainstream. Okay? There's reasons behind this. And why it's been argued by those of us who've been within this movement for years on how we should be able to pursue those areas within a traditional college setting that we excel in without being penalized and a degree withheld in spite of our hyper focus expertise because we didn't have to take algebra in high school or pre algebra. Because, yeah, you get where I'm saying, right? Yeah, that's been an argument for years, an argument that we've been talking in circles and still got nowhere on, but it illustrates my point here. ABA violates many of Skinner's groundbreaking scientific discoveries and beliefs. The Skinner of today would be arguably horrified with what his research has been used for. Very obviously, very obviously, I do not think that this individual would be very happy at all at the punishment model within ABA. They don't call it punishment because not all of them are exactly literally causing us trauma to the levels that happened to Andre McCollins or has actually contributed to our deaths like the JRC has. However, still punishment. Removal of affection because we are not acting in a neurotypical manner that ABA approves of is still very much a thing. The concept of ignoring your child when they are in a special level sensory hell and are screaming because we are not communicating in a level that the ABA therapist would approve of as neurotypical like doesn't do us any good, folks. We are screaming in pain because we are at the level of pain that all rational thought has been removed. Okay? Let me give you an example. Somebody runs up with a bat and breaks your leg. Are you going to calmly communicate that your leg is broken, or are you going to be screaming and letting a few choice words out your mouth? Because I know which one I would be. Okay? The real ABA processor would be the man who created the field of behaviorism, John B. Watson, arrested for his radicalized hate crimes in the late 1800s South Carolina. Watson is well known for his abhorrent applications of classical conditioning in Little Albert, an experiment where he emotionally abused a baby. A baby! Great. Yet his books on child care were considered the standard in the Western world for decades, a testament to his philosophy. Both of Watson's sons attempted suicide. So this is what we're leaning on, folks. We use B.F. Skinner's name for clout, and we use this guy to try to condition people who are neurodiverse to become neurotypical. And if the person doesn't, well, we got to punish them, don't we? Dear God. Watson's principles are still at work in the advertisements for Autism Speaks and ABA affiliated associations. You know how every single April you see those infomercials ad nauseum of a kid going into a meltdown, and then it shows you a happy little video of them walking down the street home from school? You see those? Because we do. Those videos are real kids, folks. Kids who did not consent to be filmed at their most vulnerable and certainly did not consent to have those vulnerable moments used on an international scale. Okay? Many ABA descriptions are designed to fill parents with fear that their child need ABA to live a fulfilling and independent life when that couldn't be further removed from reality. Let me use, for example, those of us who were misdiagnosed as kids or not diagnosed at all. It should be, if we go off of ABA's model, entirely impossible for people like me to be able to lead successful, independent lives, according to them, right? Because I don't have ABA there to try to condition me to pretend to be neurotypical. Or I don't have ABA there to try and show me to not have behaviors, right? The reality is, without having ever set foot inside the door of an ABA facility, as a woman pushing 40, I've done literally all the things they told me I would never be able to do. I've lived successfully, arguably, on my own since I was 19 years old. Okay? I hold a full-time job. I cover my own insurance. I have been able to advocate on a national and international as well as statewide scale. I have helped build the models within the transition age system within my state and nationally. The job programs, the programs teaching life skills. The Voc Rehab program was also one in my state that I heavily contributed to, that deals in particular with the neurodivergent folks who are needing assistance in getting prepared for the job market or higher education. I've given numerous workshops, more than I care to count. Indianapolis, Columbia, Jeff City, of course, Osage Beach, for years. Years. I've been part of the mentor program for almost 20 years, mentoring, believe it or not, parents, in particular those whose kiddos are getting ready to come into the transition age. Okay? If we were to go off of ABA, they would say that I would have never, without their aid, been able to develop the skills to go into the things that I have and do the things that I do. Okay? Very obviously, that's not what happened. And I am not alone. And for the argument of parents who would coming through who would say, but you're not real autistic, though. You got a few quirks. But those quirks did not interfere with you being able to lead the life that I want my kid to be able to lead. But they can't without ABA because they are more severe than you. I hate to bust your bubble, but you're full of shit. You've drank the Kool-Aid, okay? You've drank the Kool-Aid. Because the matter of fact is, if you were to look at me through my childhood, I was your kid, okay? I was your kid. I had severe issues, especially socially and sensory wise, okay? Especially there. The meltdowns, emotional breakdowns, self-injurious behavior, aggression towards others. I had all of these. And I had childhood trauma on top of that. It is a miracle that I can't explain myself in my life that I've been able to get out there and do what I've been able to do with literally all the cards stacked against me in alphabetical order. Okay? I put a lot of that success down to my mother and her refusal to listen to these idiots, and to always have been the woman who's never emotionally knee jerked reacted to anything. I don't think she's capable of it personally. She always looked at things logically. She looked at me logically outside of the lens of the medical model, which is crazy because she's been in mental health, literally one of the mental health workers and healthcare workers. She's been in the field for 40 years and she still was able to do this. So I think that was a massive contributor, to see things as they are, not what people want you to adhere to, any emotional. You get where I'm going with, right? Good. Part of it was also my rebellion, folks. For every time I was told I would never do something, never be able to do something, can't do this, can't do that, my reaction was literally roll my eyes, say, hold my beer. Okay? Good. Now, we want to talk about, but that's still just you. And I know you think you were like my child, but you really weren't. You couldn't have been, or you wouldn't be able to do all these things. That is the lie, parents. That's the lie. And ABA tells you that lie so that you will continue to fill their coffers. Okay? It's a business model. Okay? Driven by panic and fear. Okay? Because there are nonverbals. Remember, part of my adulthood, when I first came out of high school, is I went directly into assisted living. One of those individuals is what I would call partially verbal. It's communication via echolalia, with no communication or spoken word outside of echolalia. I was still able to work the same job she's worked for since she was 16 years old, full time, with reasonable accommodations and forms of communication that their managers and upper bosses learned successfully. Okay? I've seen it done. I've seen it done with nonverbals. Okay? Because not only do I have this diagnosis and know the system like the back of my hand, I have worked in this system. Okay? We're going to go ahead and close out on that. But what I want you to get mostly is how places like Autism Speaks and ABA get the backing that they do is done through fear mongering and triggering specifically knee jerk reactions. Because unlike us, and thankfully, unlike my mother, neurotypicals by and large are trigger and act off of emotional knee jerk reactions. The larger ABA corporate conglomerate in places like Autism Speaks understand this, and they utilize it as a weapon in order to keep the money coming in. Now we'll go ahead and close. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. I'll see you next vid.